Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
One day I'll kill you, you scum. Adriana got a blow in her stomach and flew back against the wall, slowly sliding to the floor. And don't you dare complain to anyone. If I find out, you'll face the consequences. The husband leaned over the fallen woman and peered into her face with eyes full of fury and madness. If you tell your mommy, I'll get rid of your whole family. Got it? The husband leaned even closer and, grabbing Adriana by the hair, lifted her head. I can't hear you. Got it? Got it, the wife said with her last strength. That's it. The husband released Adriana's hair and, instantly calming down, left the room. When his fading footsteps ceased, the front door slammed shut, and the maid quickly entered the room. Adriana, wake up. The maid leaned over her mistress, shaking her by the shoulder. The woman opened her eyes slightly and looked blankly at the maid. Sarah, help me to get up, Adriana moaned, recognizing the girl leaning over her and attempting to get up herself. Right away, be careful. The maid helped Adriana. Let's go to the bathroom. You can lie in warm water and relax. The girl led the limping mistress to the bathroom. Seating Adriana on a stool, Sarah turned on the water and added bubble bath, preparing the bath for her mistress. Fetching cotton and first aid supplies from the medical kit, the maid carefully examined Adriana's face, neck, and arms. Today there were no dissections, the girl thought, once again helping her mistress stand and removing her housecoat. A huge bruise spread across the woman's abdomen. Sarah sighed, looking away. I know what you're trying to say, Adriana spoke up, carefully getting into the filled bath. I know it. But what's the use? The mistress closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the bath. It's not my business, of course, Sarah said, folding a towel into a cushion and placing it under Adriana's head. You're the mistress, you know best, but Amanda Lozano has become completely unreasonable. I think you're in danger. What can I do, Sarah? Adriana sighed. It's too late to change anything now. Who would have known Amanda would turn out like this? But why do you tolerate all this? Sarah asked fervently. Leave him, if necessary, I'll be a witness. Do you want me to go to the police and tell them everything? And what good would that do? Adriana looked wearily at the maid. If the police get involved, he'll just bribe his way out of it. And then I don't know what'll happen. It seems like it's my fate, Sarah. If he kills me, then so be it. Adriana, drifting into sleep, closed her eyes. Now go, leave me. I'll stay in the bath for 20 minutes. I need space. As you wish, Adriana. I'll be nearby. I'll go to the living room and dust a bit. Call me immediately if anything happens. The girl stepped out of the bathroom. May God save me from such a husband, Sarah thought, and with a cloth, she started wiping the transparent table in the living room. Everyone's out there looking for something better, but then they end up bruised to the bone. And what's the point of such wealth if it's not a life but sheer torment? The tension and pain gradually eased. It's easy to say, leave him, Adriana thought, lying in the warm, silky foam of the bath. But where to go? Back to the village, where the roads are nothing but a mess, with ruts deeper than your knees, not even a bus goes there. Where there's a crooked hut, snowdrifts in winter, and wolves howling in the evenings. It's even terrifying to leave the house there. Or maybe wander the streets and rummage through trash bins for food or usable items and get a job. But what do I know how to do in life other than be a punching bag in the hands of a sadistic husband and a fool? Everywhere I turn, it's a dead end. Well, then there's only one way, endure until the patience runs out. And it all started like a beautiful Cinderella story. Adriana was born into a large family living in a remote village and spent her childhood far from civilization and the noise of big cities. Of all the modern amenities, there were only electricity and unreliable cell phone service. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, and even then, it was better to climb onto the roof or a tall tree. The district center was located far away, and it was impossible to reach the post office, medical stations, and several stores in a few minutes. If something happened, people managed on their own, as if it were 200 years ago. Whether someone fell ill or a husband beat his wife in a drunk state, it was all the same. Everyone in the village just hoped for not being torn by wolves someday. The school where Adriana and her siblings studied was located in the neighboring village, about 10 kilometers away. And was it even possible to reach school in winter, when there were snowdrifts meters deep, if no one could even leave their houses? After barely finishing school, Adriana realized there were no prospects in her native village, neither in work nor in personal life. Her parents hunted for a living most of their lives, mostly in the winter. In the summer, they gathered mushrooms, berries, and nuts. That's how they lived until her father went to the forest one day and never returned. Her mother had to raise 5 children alone. What could they do? Adriana was the oldest daughter in the family, and when she finished school, her mother told her daughter straight up, "If you want to live differently, move to the city and apply to a college. Get a degree, settle in the city, and maybe later you'll help the younger ones move there. There are no prospects in our native village, they never were and never will be." The daughter pondered and decided to go to the city to enroll in a college. But she didn't think where exactly. She would enter the one, wherever they accepted her. She arrived at the town. As soon as she got off the bus, she heard the usual street noise that was known to every city dweller. How did people even live here, she thought. Adriana's ears felt blocked from the unfamiliar sounds, and she was standing in the middle of the sidewalk amidst the stream of people hurrying somewhere, like forest ants in spring. "You, dummy, what are you standing in the middle of the road for?" A hefty guy in a cap with a long visor over his eyes lunged at Adriana. Pushing the girl out of the way, the insolent fellow, like an icebreaker cleaving through the eternal ice of Antarctica, continued on through the dense stream of rushing city dwellers. "They're so rude here," Adriana thought, looking around for a bus stop. She had only been to the city once in her life. It happened in her childhood, when the family received free tickets for the children to a puppet theater performance from the regional authorities as a large family. Having waited for the right bus, Adriana boarded the approaching transport, intending to go submit documents to the college in the field of sewing and hairdressing. But then it turned out that she didn't have money to pay the fare. Her wallet mysteriously disappeared from her pocket. "It must have been that guy who pushed me on the street," the girl realized, trying to explain the situation to the conductor. However, she refused to listen to explanations and promptly kicked Adriana off the bus as soon as it started its way. Asking for directions every minute, the girl set off on foot in the right direction. An hour and a half later, she was standing at the door of the educational institution, but soon it turned out that the stolen wallet was just the beginning of her troubles. Finding the office of the educational department, Adriana was about to submit her documents for enrollment when it turned out that she had no documents at all. All her documents, including her passport and high school diploma, were in one of the pockets of her backpack, but they had disappeared as if they had never existed. The head of the educational department, not listening to Adriana's disjointed explanations, asked her to leave until her identity could be established. "My dear, I understand everything, but without a passport and also without other documents, I can't help you in any way, understand," she patiently explained. "You need to be more careful, after all, this is the city," she added, escorting the girl out. Thus, Adriana unexpectedly found herself on the street in every sense of the word. After asking several passers-by for help, she soon realized that this was completely futile. Most of those she encountered looked at her as if she were insane. Some even looked at her suspiciously, saying they would call the police. Upon hearing the word police, Adriana deemed it wise to abandon the idea of seeking help from strangers, even though she was not guilty of anything. Night fell. The girl, contemplating where to spend the night, noticed a small square with benches in the distance. Sitting on one of them, she took out from her backpack the remnants of the food her mother had packed for the journey, a couple of boiled potatoes, black bread, and several slices of fat. She didn't want to starve herself to death now, but when she was about to have a bite, she heard the rumble of an engine behind her, the squeal of brakes, and the slamming of a car door. Two male figures in dark uniforms appeared in front of Adriana. "Look, is this her?" one of the men asked, as if Adriana were not a person at all, but rather something akin to the bench itself. "I don't know," the second policeman replied. It was dark. I noticed there were several of them there, and they scattered right away. Well, what difference does it make to us if it's her or not? Normal people sit at home at night, not on benches. Take her, we'll bring her to the police station, and they can deal with it themselves, the first man said, unceremoniously grabbing Adriana by the arm and dragging her into the nearby car. "What are you doing?" the girl protested. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Resisting police officers?" The second man looked at her, picking Adriana up by the arm from the other side. "I strongly advise you not to do it. If you're not guilty of anything, they'll let you go. But by resisting, you're committing a crime." "What?" Adriana looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "The real crime," the policeman said, shoving the girl into the patrol car. "Sit quietly, you silly country girl. Maybe you'll be free soon." The patrol car brought Adriana to the police station. Without saying another word, two policemen led her out of the car and escorted her to the precinct. There, an indifferent duty officer, after taking her belongings, pushed the detainee into a cell where were several girls with bright makeup and in provocatively short skirts, along with three more detainees with pale, earthy faces and vacant, bleary eyes. The duty officers silently locked the door and left. "Hey, beauty, do you have a cigarette?" one of the girls asked Adriana. "They've searched us thoroughly. Even took away our makeup bags with brushes. But I really feel like smoking." "Stop the chatter," the duty officer said. "Don't buzz around, there's already enough buzzing without you." "He's buzzing around himself," the girl muttered under her breath. "Sylvia, enough chattering there, I hear everything," the duty officer replied. "Keep it up, and you'll see what happens." "Shut your mouth," I said. The phone rang in the room. The duty officer picked up the receiver to answer the call. "What are you here for?" The girl looked Adriana up and down. "You don't seem like one of ours." "Not really like those junkies," she nodded towards the group with the earthy faces, "or like us." "What did you do?" "I don't know. They just took me off the street." Adriana yawned, feeling her eyes getting heavy. By this time, everyone in her home village would usually be asleep. Nestling in the corner of the bench, she leaned against the wall, drifting into a light doze. Suddenly, she heard loud banging and voices, and the noise broke into her sleep. Adriana opened her eyes. There was the duty officer and two others in civilian clothes in front of the cell. "Listen up, it's not the time to sleep," the duty officer said, tapping the bars of the cell with a plastic baton. "It's almost morning, and the shift will change. Whoever wants to come out of here should draw conclusions, decide, and act right. Think it over. Who's first? What does he want?" Adriana whispered to the girl sitting next to her with bright makeup and black fishnet stockings. "Seriously, don't you get it?" The girl looked at Adriana. "Well, if you want to get out of here sooner, come up with something to pay off the duty officer and the cops before they change shifts," she patiently explained. "And when the shift changes, you'll be stuck here for at least another day." "Why is that?" Adriana didn't understand. "Because when another duty officer comes, he'll take over the shift with you imprisoned here, and they'll have to figure out who you are, where you're from, and if you have any issues, you know. Offer them something in exchange, like an item, money, or do something for them." Seeing that Adriana didn't fully understand, the girl clarified. "So, they picked us up, brought us here, and met the quota for detaining suspicious individuals during patrols. And since there's a report, there's no point in keeping us here any longer. So they should let us out." Adriana still didn't grasp the situation. "You're so strange, you can't understand simple things," the girl stared at Adriana in surprise. Are you from the village? I am, Adriana nodded. All right, then, the girl waved her hand, responding. You'll figure everything out soon. Sylvia, I see you've made your choice. The duty officer addressed the girl sitting next to Adriana. Quickly, out you go. And take Benita with you, or what's the name of that girl? Go to the interrogation room. I like that one over there, one of the men standing by the bar spoke up, pointing at Adriana. But she doesn't seem to be one of them, the priestess of love, the duty officer remarked. And so what? The man replied. If she wants to get out, let her go, he chuckled, pleased with his joke. Miss, out you go, quickly. He commanded Adriana. The girls and Adriana stepped out from behind the bars, moved forward down the corridor, and entered the open door of the interrogation room. The duty officer and the two men followed. Someone, cover for me in the duty room, the duty officer requested. I'll be back soon. The girls, paying no attention to Adriana's bewildered look, began to undress as if they were going to see a doctor. Doll, what are you waiting for? The man who ordered her to go with the girls grinned at her. What else do you need? Wait, let's do it differently. I have an idea. Pedro, you stay here, and I'll cover for you, he said to the duty officer. Adriana, let's go. He firmly grabbed Adriana's arm and led her out of the interrogation room into the corridor. Where are we going? Adriana shrugged. You'll find out soon enough, dear. The cop opened the door to the duty officer's post and pushed Adriana inside. I want it right here, he declared, grabbing his belt buckle. The girl looked on in astonishment, as if from the sidelines. Suddenly, the cop stopped and pondered. No, he decisively said. You, darling, are going to make me crave adventure so much. I've been longing to do this with someone like you, fresh, innocent, and wide-eyed. Somewhere under a bush in nature, like I'm a schoolboy, and you're my classmate. The cop pulled Adriana out of the duty room and dragged her onto the street. You'll like it, he said. What is it? The girl asked. You're so funny. The cop grinned. Are you from the village? Oh, that's even better. It's the real juice, like finding a needle in a haystack. I can't wait. The cop dragged Adriana to the bushes near the police station. Come on, what are you waiting for? He grabbed the girl, trying to push her to the ground. You brute. Adriana seemed to understand everything, and she forcefully pushed the thug away. Not expecting such a turn, the cop stumbled and, stepping on a bottle lying on the ground, crashed into the bushes. Watch out, you little bitch. He growled, grabbing onto the bush branches. Stop, I'm talking to you. The girl quickly got out of the bushes and hurried away. Her sturdy legs, accustomed to the burdens of rural life, soon carried Adriana far from the police station. There was no pursuit. The girl stopped and looked around. Where to go now, she thought. Definitely not back to the clutches of those brutes at the police station. After walking a little further, Adriana noticed an iron fence and the domes of a church visible in the twilight. Without much thought, she headed towards the fence. The gate was locked. Adriana climbed over the fence, wandering among the graves of the churchyard, and hid behind a tall ancient obelisk. Sleep was overwhelming. The girl picked some fresh cemetery grass, scattered it on the ground, curled up like a kitten, and instantly fell into a deep sleep. Hey, girl, wake up. Who are you? Someone shook her by the shoulder, trying to wake Adriana. Instantly recalling her recent adventures at the police station, the girl quickly jumped to her feet. Before her, there was a short elderly woman in a light scarf tied behind her head, holding a small scythe with a short handle in her hands. Who are you? Why are you sleeping here? The woman asked again, scrutinizing Adriana. You're so young, you don't seem crazy. Did something happen to you? Did you have a fight with your parents or your fiancé? Make up with them, it's all you need. It's disorderly to sleep among graves. I came to mow the grass and almost hit you with the scythe. Good thing I noticed in time. My home is far from here, Adriana said. And I can't go back. I have no money and no documents. Everything was stolen. The policeman took me to the police station from the street at night for no reason at all. I barely got out of there. The girl felt tears welling up in her eyes. What did I do? Nothing bad at all. Why is all this happening to me? Calm down, dear, the woman stroked Adriana's hand. You seem to have come from the village, right? I was born in the village myself. The priest will be here for morning prayers. Come, you'll talk to him. He'll help somehow, you'll see. The woman led Adriana to the church building. Who is this, Paulina? Who came so early in the morning? An elderly priest entered through the gate and walked along the path towards the women standing near the church. Good morning, Marco, Paulina bowed to the priest. I came here to mow the grass in the morning while there's no crowd. After the rains, the grass has grown so much that no one can see the paths. And look, there's a girl sleeping on the ground here. I woke her up. She says she came from the village. But all her money and documents were stolen, and she has nowhere to go now. Is that so? The priest looked at Adriana from under his gray eyebrows. Why didn't you go to the police then? I didn't, Adriana replied. They grabbed me off the street for no reason themselves and took me to the police station. Then they wanted to rape me, but I managed to escape. I see, the priest pondered. If you're telling the truth, then I understand. You've had a rough time in the city. What do you plan to do now? Marco, we should find her a place to stay for now. We need to gather some money for her to be able to go back home. Look at her, she's so young and pretty. She might get into more trouble, Paulina chimed in. All right, Paulina, nobody's chasing her away from here for now. Calm down, Marco reassured her. But if you want to go back home, we need to think about where to find the money for that, the priest addressed Adriana. It would be best for you to earn that money yourself, of course. Marco, maybe we should ask Armando Lozano for help? Paulina suggested. He always gives money when something is needed for the church or when someone from the parish is in great need. You're right, Paulina, the priest agreed. Armando always asks us to come to him if something is needed for the church. The other day he mentioned that he's looking for a maid for his house. Marco looked at Adriana. Can you work as a maid? Of course, Adriana replied. But who is this Armando? He's one of our parishioners and a patron of the church, a respected man, a businessman, and a widower, the priest answered. He's supposed to stop by the church closer to noon today. He mentioned discussing the restoration of the chapel. I'll ask him to take a look at you as well. Maybe you'll suit him as a maid. She didn't have any other options. However, looking back on this encounter later, how many times did Adriana tell herself that it would have been better if it hadn't happened at all? After morning prayers, Paulina, having tidied up the church a bit, took the girl to her home. Fortunately, she lived nearby, and she fed Adriana with whatever she could. At noon, they were once again entering the gate of the church together. Beside the gate, there was a large, dark blue car with city plates. Marco was talking on the street with a tall, dignified man in a light business suit with black hair touched by gray. Noticing Adriana and Paulina entering the gate, Marco said, Armando, this is the girl I told you about. She's in trouble and can't go back home. Very young, very pitiful. Perhaps she'd be suitable as a maid for you? Armando turned and scrutinized Adriana attentively. His cold, dark brown eyes studied the girl from head to toe with interest, as if she were an item on a store shelf. Good day, the man said, continuing to assess Adriana. I'm Armando Lozano. And what's your name, miss? Hello, she suddenly faltered. My name is Adriana. Well, Adriana, you suit me, Armando said. Have we discussed everything, Marco? He asked. And you, Adriana, can come with me right now. We'll talk about everything there. Bowing, Amando gestured invitingly and led her to the car parked next to the fence. Opening the front passenger door, Amando asked the girl to get in. Surprised by his courtesy, Adriana climbed into the salon and looked around. Wow, she thought, inhaling the scent of the salon and touching the leather upholstery of the seat with her fingers. Mom would be amazed to see me now. Amando brought Adriana to his house. It was a spacious mansion, resembling a palace of some count, close to an imperial family. At least to a little peasant girl born far from the comforts of civilization, palaces seemed exactly like this. A pathway made of white stone slabs led to the house. The house rose above it, reaching into the blue sky with its high towers. Approaching the marble staircase in front of the entrance, Adriana involuntarily stopped, as if in front of a temple, raising her head upward. The house was surrounded by a green garden with flower beds and perfectly trimmed bushes. In the depths of the garden, a fountain with sparkling streams of water glistening in the sun could be seen. "Come on, Adriana," the host said, taking the girl's elbow. "Come inside, please." He led Adriana up the stairs. Inside, everything turned out to be no less magical than outside. Before the entrance, the bewildered peasant girl was greeted by a spacious, echoing hall leading to a living room with a fireplace and leather sofas. Directly from the hall, she saw a bright marble staircase to the second floor with railings made of smooth, shiny wood. Confused, Adriana stopped in the middle of the hall. "Is something wrong?" the host asked mischievously. "I can't work here for you," the girl replied. "How can I handle cleaning such a big place alone? You'd need a whole team of cleaners here immediately." "But that's actually what I usually do," the host remarked. "Or rather, not me, but my housekeeper, who manages all this household stuff. Don't worry, special people are responsible for the cleaning here. I have a long-term contract with them." "Then why do you need me?" Adriana looked at Amando suspiciously. "Don't think I'm one of those, who sleeps with men for money." "Calm down, Adriana," the host laughed. "I never intended to pay you for anything like that, believe me. I do need a maid, but not here, in the city apartment. I only live here from time to time when I want to take a break from work." "You know what? I think I'll go," Adriana decisively declared. "You're joking about everything here, and I really need money. I can't even call my mom to tell her how things are. My phone was stolen, along with my documents." "Wait a minute," Amando said, stopping laughing. "Yes, I do need a maid, but I've got other thoughts about you now. Let's discuss everything calmly, and then you'll decide for yourself whether to stay here or not. Let's go sit down and have a cup of coffee." He picked up an elegant silver bell from the living room table and rang it. The melodic sound echoed through the hall, and a stern-looking woman in a dark business dress with carefully styled hair appeared in the living room. "Eleonora, make us some coffee," the host said to the woman. "What would you like? Latte, cappuccino, Americano?" he asked Adriana. The girl looked at Amando in surprise. "Is he kidding me?" she thought. "Do you have African?" Adriana asked challengingly. "You're simply charming, Adriana." The host chuckled. "No, I don't have that. I'm a coffee enthusiast and love all kinds," he explained amiably. "And you, apparently, have never heard of such things? Well then, I hope good black coffee will suffice for you." Amando nodded to Eleonora, who was waiting for instructions. Without a word, the woman left. "Will you tell me what you wanted to offer instead of being a maid?" Adriana asked, feeling like she had stepped into a museum of imperial porcelain in muddy, clay-covered boots. In school, the teacher talked about it and even showed pictures of the museum halls. "I must confess, I'm a bit old-fashioned, so I tend to indulge in ceremonies," the host said. "So, please forgive me for that, and without further ado, let me get straight to the point." Eleonora returned, carrying an elegant service set on a tray. Placing it on the table, she silently left again. "Well, it's definitely imperial porcelain," Adriana thought as she was watching the host pour aromatic coffee into delicate milky white cups. Please, help yourself. It's very good coffee, Amando said, placing a cup of coffee on a saucer in front of the girl. No, Adriana looked doubtfully at the cup in front of her. I might break the cup, then what? Well, at least try it. You'll like it, the host said, taking a sip from his own cup. It's an excellent coffee. He closed his eyes with satisfaction, savoring the aroma. Adriana hesitantly picked up the cup and cautiously took a sip. Isn't there any sugar? She asked, slightly wrinkling her nose at the bitterness of the drink. There is. The host laughed again. But I don't recommend adding it. The taste of this noble coffee is better without it, trust me. Although I understand it may seem unusual. Amando looked closely at the girl. Have you ever wanted to change your life and try something new and completely different? I don't know, she replied. I just want to get home as soon as possible. You know, Adriana, I like you more and more, Amando said. Okay, I won't keep you in suspense any longer and tell you what I want to offer you instead of being a maid. Listening to the man sitting next to her and surveying the surroundings, Adriana couldn't shake the feeling that she was dreaming. The fairy tale continued. Amando explained that he owned an etiquette school and a matchmaking agency for very wealthy people. The essence of the offer for Adriana was to become one of the students at the etiquette school for young ladies and soon become part of the bride market intended for people from the elite world of big business. However, the girl herself was not enthusiastic about this idea, but Amando insisted. I have another proposal for you, he said in response to her expressed doubts. Maybe let's skip the conventionalities. We do it this way here, he suggested. What do you mean? Adriana asked in surprise. You like ceremonies, so. Old-fashioned, you mean? Amando looked mischievously at her. Or just too old for you, maybe? Come on, relax, one doesn't exclude the other, believe me. Despite my love for formality, I'm quite a simple person. Everyone who knows me can attest to that. So, are you willing to try something new or not? I see potential in you, and I have a sharp eye, he continued, seeing Adriana's hesitation. But why me? The girl wondered. I didn't even know you yesterday, and now suddenly. That's how life goes, Adriana. You just got lucky. That's firstly, Amando replied, and secondly, you should agree. Well, what else awaits you in this city? Work in a hair salon or a shop? But what will my mom say, Amando? Adriana doubted again. I'll take care of your mom, he assured her. Thus, the fate of the little peasant girl from a distant, remote village suddenly changed, and vice versa. Adriana didn't know what arguments Amando had presented to her mom, but she hadn't even been against anything. Soon Adriana's passport, which was stolen on the very first day, was restored, and the girl moved into Amando's country house and started living there under the vigilant eye of the manager, Eleonora. She showed the room assigned to the girl and first opened the wardrobe with new clothes before her. Here, take a look, she said. No more old clothes or even underwear from your village. Tomorrow you'll go to the beauty salon, they'll completely freshen you up there, and after that, you'll enroll in the ladies' school, where you'll be under the teacher's control. But why do I need it? Amando said right away that I'm very beautiful, Adriana said. My dear, your beauty is just a natural talent. Like an uncut diamond, Eleonora replied coldly. But your task is to turn this diamond into a brilliant one. And the most important thing here is to make you look more like a city person. How so? Adriana didn't understand. Well, it's obvious, Eleonora looked ironically at the girl. Perhaps you've heard such an expression before? It's quite easy to leave the village, but it's much harder to make you look more like a city person. So, that's your most important task. Adriana's day was now strictly scheduled from morning until evening. Ladies' school classes went on all week, except weekends. But even on weekends, vigilant Eleonora didn't take her eyes off Adriana. Among the subjects studied were etiquette, the ability to behave properly like a true lady in all situations, foreign languages, and even the basics of psychology in relationships with men. After all, the goal of education was to become worthy spouses for the powerful in this world. On the first day, the girls signed a contract, the mandatory condition of which was a ban on any relationships with men during their education at the ladies' school. Communication between the students was also not encouraged, and there simply wasn't time for it. In the morning, Eleonora woke Adriana up, made her breakfast, only healthy and no indulgences, and then personally took her to her studies. This was supplemented by fitness, swimming pools, beauty procedures, and dances. There was simply no time for anything more. After a year of this life, Adriana was unrecognizable. It seemed like there was nothing left of the little peasant girl who had come from afar and, stunned by the noise of the streets, had stepped off the bus on one of the sunny summer days. Armando showed genuine interest in Adriana's successes. Regularly visiting his home, he spent time with the girl chatting, and once a week he inevitably took her to some social event. "Get used to it, Adriana," he used to say, announcing Adriana's next social outing. "Social events are a mandatory attribute of your future life, so be ready at the appointed hour, I'll pick you up." He wasn't interested in what Adriana herself wanted. Arguing with such a person clearly wasn't worth it, and the main principle of education at the ladies' school was that the man's word was equated with the law for future wives of rich people. After a year and a half since the start of her education, Adriana, like any other student at the ladies' school, was waiting for an exam. The school was considered completed if the girls successfully passed all the exams, and after that, she became a candidate for Armando's matchmaking agency. Turning to such an agency in search of a wife was not affordable for everyone, but the owner personally bore responsibility for the quality of the offered brides. Adriana, proving to be a capable student, passed all the exams successfully. However, Armando didn't rush to include her in the catalog of brides at his agency yet. He personally congratulated the girl on successfully completing the ladies' school and even gave her a diamond ring for the occasion. After Armando's departure, Adriana, putting the ring on her finger, went to the kitchen for lunch. Sitting down at the table, she examined the gift, turning her hand in different directions and watching the play of light in the facets of the precious stone. Eleonora served the table and sat down next to her, silently observing the girl with ironic amusement. "Eleonora, does Armando only give such gifts to the very best students at the end of school?" Adriana asked. "I've never heard of such a thing," Eleonora replied reservedly, starting to eat. "But then, why did he give me this?" the girl asked, showing the finger with the ring to the manager. "Don't you understand?" Eleonora smirked in response. "Sometimes I feel like we'll never fully get rid of the village in you. Don't you realize the situation? You live in this house, and your education is free. The owner devotes much more time to you than anyone else, and now he even gives you a ring. What conclusion can you make?" Eleonora looked ironically at Adriana. "And he still hasn't put my profile in the catalog of brides," the girl said. "I asked him about it, but he didn't give me a clear answer." "Exactly, you're finally getting it," Eleonora smiled. "It's obvious that the owner, having assigned you to his ladies' school, wanted to make you a worthy bride for himself. As soon as you stepped over the threshold of this house, I understood it right away. You should have seen the way the owner looked at you. I've never seen anything like it since his wife's death. You got lucky, girl, do you understand?" Armando soon indeed began to show Adriana slightly different signs of attention than before. First, he suggested that the girl try herself as a model so she would have her own source of income. However, she continued to live in Armando's house, and the contract prohibiting Adriana from entering into relationships with men remained in effect. Adriana became a model. Soon, her professional photos adorned the covers of famous glossy magazines. Armando still took her to social events, but now he presented the girl as his friend, not his ward as before. Soon everyone started talking about Adriana and Armando being in a close relationship, although there was nothing like that in reality. "Adriana, do you know that people consider you practically my fiancée?" Amando asked one day as they were returning from another event together. "You won't believe it, but today I received several congratulations on our upcoming wedding and several questions about when it will take place," he laughed, driving the car towards the house. Adriana remained silent in response, not knowing what to say. Amando had always been a kind of senior companion to her, sometimes a friend, but she couldn't seriously consider him as a fiancé. "Well, why don't you say anything?" Amando asked. "Sooner or later, you'll have to make a choice. Remember, you have a contract with the ladies' school and my matchmaking agency. Why get to know someone new when I can be your husband? I believe it's the best option for you, and there's no need to think about it. So it's time to make everyone happy and announce that the wedding will indeed take place soon." Thus, Adriana became Amando's fiancée, and then his wife. However, as always, he decided everything for her. In addition to Adriana's beauty, her future husband was very pleased with the fact that the girl had never had intimate relationships with men. However, he insisted on personally verifying this fact before the wedding. Adriana had to submit once again. Fully convinced of the bride's purity, the happy groom began to prepare for the wedding. "I feel like Pygmalion," Amando would say, looking at his future wife. "I've created you, like Galatea, from scratch, exactly as I wanted to see you. Now you're only mine. You're mine completely and no one else's." After the wedding, the newlyweds moved into a new spacious apartment, purchased by Amando specifically for starting their new family. Was Adriana herself happy? No one still asked her about it. Having graduated from the ladies' school, the girl guided her life only by what was instilled in her during her education, and graduates generally did not ask themselves questions like "How happy am I?" or "What do I really want?" After all, the main thing was to settle successfully in life. At first, everything went reasonably well. Later on, Adriana often wondered what happened when her husband, an affable gentleman, gradually turned into an inadequate and unpredictable beast. A year after the wedding, Adriana suddenly noticed that her husband started behaving differently. He increasingly expressed dissatisfaction with his wife, although he used to admire her constantly. "Why aren't you pregnant yet?" he asked his wife one day, and the next day he scheduled her for an appointment at a women's health clinic, intending to find out the reason. The examination did not provide an answer to this question. Adriana was completely healthy. The next complaint was that he wasn't satisfied with his wife in bed. Adriana didn't know what was wrong with her husband this time. She did what they taught her, preparing to be the wives of the richest men in this world, as best as she could. However, Amando, sensing her inner coldness, became increasingly enraged. "You haven't met my expectations," he told her one day. "And yet, I invested so much in you that it won't pay off. I created you, got you from rags to riches, and polished you like a diamond." Adriana had nothing to say to her husband in response. After all, he never spoke about what exactly his wife was guilty of. He only reproached her for no longer eliciting his previous strong emotions. "I would divorce you," Amando finally declared after another round of complaints, "but I can't bring myself to do it. So much has been invested in you." He pushed Adriana away with disgust, and she, losing her balance, fell to the floor and groaned in pain, hitting her head on the bedpost. However, Amando saw this and, apparently feeling a strange relief, suddenly calmed down. Wasn't this the beginning of dark days in Adriana's life? If her husband returned home in a bad mood, the wife knew he would definitely want to relieve his negative emotions by beating her. After that, he would calm down and usually leave home, sometimes disappearing for several days. And these days were a real respite for Adriana. Bruises and abrasions gradually healed, and she could relax until the next meeting with her husband. What scared the wife was that with each time, the monster erupted more and more, as if he wanted to test how much patience his wife had for such a life. And finally, after another scandal, he declared that he would gladly kill Adriana, justifying it by the fact that since he created her and the creation turned out to be a failure, he had the right to destroy her. At the same time, Amando's business began to crack. One rich man, having bought himself a bride at Amando's matchmaking agency, was extremely dissatisfied with his young wife. Having gotten married, the successful graduate of the ladies' school during the honeymoon robbed her husband heavily, stealing all the passwords and other confidential data of his accounts and business. The deceived client urgently demanded compensation for the damage and sued Amando. The frightened owner of the matchmaking agency had a hard time finding a huge sum of compensation while falling into debt. But his hitherto successful business began to collapse practically before his eyes. The clients didn't trust him anymore, and many of them demanded their money back. This created new, growing debts for Amando's business, and the culprit turned out to be none other than Adriana, his wife. "You brought bad luck upon me," he exclaimed, once again resorting to his fists. "My life only went downhill after you showed up." After this scandal, Adriana was hospitalized in a private clinic, where she spent several days feeling safe away from her furious husband. The attending physician didn't ask unnecessary questions. Besides the maid, Sarah, no one knew what happened to Adriana. Her absence from social events for a long time didn't surprise anyone. It was assumed that the girl had successfully married and devoted herself to her family. Adriana woke up, hearing the maid's voice. "The water has cooled down already, get up. You need to get out of the bath, or you'll catch a cold." Sarah draped a bathrobe over her mistress's shoulders. "I've prepared a snack for you. Let me help you change, and you can lie down, and I'll bring you something to eat right in bed." "No, Sarah, I don't want to lie down anymore," Adriana said. "I'd rather just sit in the living room. Maybe watch some TV or read something." "Adriana, you haven't eaten anything since this morning," the maid remarked. "You've become so thin. Look, your clothes look huge on you. You should buy some new ones. Amando won't be back soon, don't worry. He told me before lunch that he's leaving for a couple of days on some business." "Okay, Sarah," Adriana replied. "You convinced me. Cook something light for me. Maybe some salad." "Okay, Adriana," the maid said happily. "I'll go and make it right away." Sarah went to the kitchen. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. "Sarah, I'll open it myself," Adriana said, stepping into the hall and unlocking the front door. There was a strange man on the doorstep, dressed in a dark gray business suit. "Hello," he said. "May I see Amando?" "Unfortunately, he's not home right now," Adriana replied. "He said he's leaving for a couple of days on some business." "Strange," the man said. "I've been calling him since this morning, but he doesn't pick up his phone. And, by the way, he has a business meeting with me right now. We agreed on that." The man fell silent, disappointed. "I'm sorry, but Amando doesn't tell me about his business affairs, so I can't help you," Adriana said. "Are you his wife?" The man looked closely at Adriana's face and hands. Suddenly realizing that the bruises and abrasions were too noticeable, she became embarrassed and, burning with shame before the stranger, seemed to become very small and vulnerable. "Did he do this?" the man asked, his eyes flashing with simmering rage. "How can anyone treat a woman like this, especially one as beautiful as you? I don't understand and don't want to. It doesn't matter if it was him or not, what's the difference?" Adriana muttered, hiding her face in her hands. "Call my husband again, I'd like to lie down, sorry. By the way, was it your photo I saw on the cover of a magazine?" the guest suddenly asked. "It was you, right?" "Yes, it was," Adriana agreed, patiently waiting for the guest to leave. "Those photos were amazing," he exclaimed. "You're very beautiful." "I used to be," Adriana said sadly. "I'll tell my husband that you stopped by." "You're still very, very beautiful," the guest reassured her. "I'll leave now, but could I have a glass of water? It's hot today." "Yes, sure," Adriana sighed with relief. "Sarah, please bring a glass of water for our guest," she said, raising her voice. "The maid will bring you water now, and I should leave you, excuse me. Goodbye." Adriana walked through the hall and headed upstairs to the second floor of the apartment, to her bedroom. "Here's the water." Sarah came out of the kitchen with a glass of water on a tray. "Thank you." The guest took the glass, drank it with visible pleasure, and put it back on the tray. "Maybe you know where the owner is?" he asked. Unfortunately, he didn't say where he was going, the maid politely replied. "So, did I understand correctly? Did Amando do this?" the man suddenly asked. "I mean, all these bruises and abrasions on his wife. Is this his doing?" "Of course, whose else could it be?" The maid lowered her voice. "I'm just afraid that Adriana is in great danger because the master has completely lost his mind," she whispered. "No one knows about it except me. I've been telling her for a long time to go to the police before something bad happens." "But why doesn't she leave her husband?" the man asked. "She has nowhere to go because he'll find her anywhere." The maid waved her hand in annoyance. "So that the mistress is afraid to go to the police. She says her husband will just bribe the police, and after that, he'll definitely kill her. He has already told her he would kill her several times. I've heard it myself. Just don't tell anyone what I've just told you, or I'll get into trouble too," the maid pleaded. "Don't worry, I promise," the guest assured her. "But all this is just terrible." "Okay, thanks for the water. You've really helped me, Sarah." He flirtatiously winked at the embarrassed girl and, saying goodbye, left. "Oh, you didn't even introduce yourself," the maid realized. "How will I tell the master who came to see him?" "Right. Sarah, you're just great. The owners are lucky to have you," the guest said, smiling at the embarrassed girl. "My name is Emilio Mora." He took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to the maid. "And I also want to ask you, Sarah, when the master comes home, call me or send a message." "Agreed?" "It seems to me that Amando is avoiding me." The recent guest soon appeared again at Amando and Adriana's house. As promised, the owner returned after 2 days, and the maid Sarah promptly told Emilio about it over the phone number indicated on the business card. Oblivious Amando returned in the morning and immediately ordered the maid to make breakfast for him. The girl nodded, about to go to the kitchen, but at that moment, the doorbell rang, and she went to answer it. "Who else is it, Sarah?" "I'm not here for anyone," the owner growled, heading towards the stairs to the second floor. "Hello, it's me. Your former partner, dear Amando." Emilio was standing in the hallway. "I've been calling you for days with no answer. Catching you at work is also impossible. So I had to come to your house myself. And now you have no choice, we need to talk." "Fine, come in if you're here," Amando grunted, irritably flopping onto the couch in the living room. "Sarah, make coffee for us quickly." "You're not very hospitable," Emilio remarked ironically, sitting down opposite the owner. "Especially considering the amount you owe me, it's at least incorrect." "Emilio, you have to understand, I don't have the money right now," Amando changed his tone. "I went away just for this reason, to find a way to pay back your debt, believe me. But so far, alas, I haven't achieved anything. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Amando, this is not how things are done. And I don't need to explain it to you," Emilio said. "You convinced me to invest in your new project and promised quick profits. And what's the result?" "I understand everything, but I failed," Amando said in despair. "The project didn't work out, plus there were other problems, and it's all growing like a snowball." "So there's no money," the guest pondered. "I see. Then I have one proposal, and I believe it's the only way for you to settle with me. If you refuse, I'm going to court, I promise." "Go on." Amando stared anxiously at his former partner. "What do you want?" "You have a very beautiful wife." Emilio looked meaningfully at Amando. "In what sense?" He didn't understand. "In the most literal sense," the guest replied nonchalantly. "I dropped by your place the other day and had the pleasure of meeting her in person. She's a very beautiful woman. She's a jinx and brings nothing but trouble. Amando's eyes filled with anger. Things were always fine before she showed up in my life. Listen, are you hitting her or something? The guest asked. None of your business. Amando glared at Emilio. This shouldn't concern you. Well, that's debatable, Emilio remarked. After all, you want to settle with me. So here's the deal, I need your wife. You give her to me, and consider that you owe me nothing else. Are you serious? Amando looked hopefully at Emilio. Take her right now if you want. I'm tired of her. At least there will be some benefit from her presence. That's perfect, Emilio concluded. But remember, I need her entirely and completely, with no other owner but me. So first, you'll divorce her, and the sooner you do it, the sooner you'll stop owing me. I can do it tomorrow, Amando replied. I'll find someone and divorce her in a second. Then take this troublemaker with all her belongings. Adriana, closing her eyes, was lying in her room on the bed. She already heard that her husband had returned and anxiously awaited when he would come up to her. She was expecting anything to happen. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and listened. She heard footsteps in the corridor outside the door, then the door swung open, and her husband appeared on the threshold of the room. I want a divorce, he announced without preamble. Get ready, we're going to start the divorce process right now. Adriana and Amando returned home in the afternoon. Well, there you go, Amando said, addressing his ex-wife. Now you will finally get out of here. But where should I go? Tears welled up in Adriana's eyes. I have nothing. Just as I didn't have anything in the beginning, so now, after years spent with you. Well, you don't have to worry about that, her husband replied. After the divorce, you'll have somewhere to go. Say thank you that you won't be living on the street. Amando, what do you mean? Adriana became anxious. Listen carefully, Amando said. Now you'll get ready, dress nicely, completely tidy yourself up, and go to the house of one person. And from that moment on, you'll be completely under his control, and I don't want to hear anything else about you. Why should I go to this person? Adriana looked at her husband with fear. Do you remember in what condition you were when I found you when you came to town? Remember from what mess I pulled you out and made you what you are now? Amando said. You owe me your life after that, and I owe that person a huge sum of money. And fortunately, he offered to forgive my debt in exchange for you. I agreed, and the rest doesn't concern me at all. Now you're no longer my wife. Amando, I can't believe you would treat me like this, Adriana was crying. I'm not an object, not even a dog or a cat. Pay off my debt, her husband interrupted. And if you think about running away, remember, you have nowhere to run. I'll find you everywhere and drag you to him by force. Now you have a different owner, and just try not to please him and disappoint his expectations. You have an hour, get ready. Amando descended to the living room and called for the maid. Go to the mistress and help her get ready, he told Sarah, taking out his phone and dialing Emilio's number. Emilio, I fulfilled your conditions. We've got divorced, and Adriana will be ready to appear at your place in an hour. Now it's your turn to fulfill what you promised. Excellent, Emilio replied over the phone. Exactly an hour from now, I'll send a car for her, but don't rush. Before I forgive your debt, I want to personally ensure that your wife is as good as I thought. She must first please me, and then I'll make a decision. You still have no other way out. Adriana silently prepared herself, getting ready for the upcoming visit. The door opened, and the maid entered the room. That's it, Sarah, Adriana said sadly, we probably won't see each other again. My husband divorced me and is kicking me out of the house right now. But even that's not the worst part. He decided to settle his huge debt by paying it off with a living person, so to speak. My goodness, how is that possible? Sarah gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. And who is this person to whom Amando owes? I don't know, Sarah, Adriana sighed, examining the dress hanging in the wardrobe. So I'm preparing for the worst. I guess I came to the city at the wrong time, but it's too late to change anything now. Well, I guess I'll wear this, she said, taking a black long dress off the hanger. Adriana, but this dress is suitable only for funerals, Sarah pointed out. Don't bury yourself prematurely, things might still change. I don't know what's waiting for me, but now this person is my owner. That's what my husband said. Adriana looked at herself in the mirror. And I have no choice. Are you ready? Amanda appeared in the room. The car is here, waiting downstairs. Come on, what are you waiting for? Adriana took a last look around her room, as if bidding farewell, and silently walked away. She descended to the hall and, without uttering another word, left the house. A large black car was waiting by the entrance. Adriana approached it. The door of the front seat swung open. Get in the car, the driver said. Gathering her long dress, Adriana sat in the front seat. You? She said in surprise, looking at the person behind the wheel. Yes, Adriana, that's right, it's me, Emilio smiled in response. Amando, waking up in the morning, opened his eyes and stretched sweetly, lying in bed. For the first time in a while, he managed to get a good night's sleep, which was already good. Now everything will be fine. The end of the bad luck, he thought happily, picking up his phone and browsing the news online. Suddenly, he received the notification. Amando opened the message and his face changed. On the screen, he saw a photo of Adriana lying on her back amidst scattered blue shards. The black long dress in which his ex-wife left the house yesterday was torn from top to bottom. A dark red puddle of blood was spreading from the back of the woman's head, mixing with her hair lying on the floor. Upon seeing this unexpectedly revealed image, Amando, against his will, felt a surge of pity and guilt towards Adriana. His former wife in the photo looked lifeless, he couldn't make a mistake. In the next second, the phone rang. It was Emilio. Why did you send me this? Amando asked in horror, answering the call. Did you kill her? I sent what I had to, Emilio replied. And what did you pass me off? Is she a prude? I spent the whole night chasing her like a fool. She was unyielding. How much can you persuade someone? I grabbed her a bit forcefully. She screamed, broke free, and tried to run away from me. I chased after her. I caught up with her right by the stairs, and she clawed at my face like a mad cat. She broke free from my grip again. And then she fell headfirst down the stairs. Do you know what kind of staircase I have in my house? I looked, and she was lying downstairs, covered in blood and not breathing. In short, I'm not satisfied, and that's putting it mildly. And this devil knocked over a vase that was on a pedestal during the fall. Do you know how much it's worth? It's a Ming Dynasty vase. Anyway, listen to what I've decided, Emilio continued impatiently, ignoring any objections. Since you haven't been able to settle your debt yet, you must take the blame for your wife's death, and then I'll forgive you. How do you mean take the blame? Amando objected. You're the one who killed her, not me. What difference does it make who did it? Emilio declared. In any case, the main reason for this is your fault. But I'll be arrested. Amando exclaimed in horror. That's unlikely, Emilio replied. I'll handle her body myself, and you'll go to the police right now and confess. Say that your wife didn't agree to the divorce, you had a fight, you lost control, and so on. When you realized you had killed her, you got scared. You took her body to the woods at night and buried it. Of course, they'll ask you to show the burial site. Show them any place, and they won't find the body there. There won't be evidence of a crime. What would they arrest you for? Maybe for a minor offense. But what about the maid? She saw that Adriana left the house by herself yesterday, Amando asked anxiously. Make a deal with her, pay her properly, and dismiss her retroactively. Pretend like it never happened by then. Just say that you and your wife had a fight at the country house, it'll be easier, Emilio advised. It all seems too complicated, Amando hesitated. Maybe Adriana just left somewhere unknown and disappeared. And what if they start searching for her later and trace it back to me? No, you must take the blame for her murder, understood? Emilio asserted. And don't you dare report me to the police yourself. If they arrest me, your debt won't disappear. But if you divert any suspicion away from me, then I'll forgive it. And that's my condition, otherwise, I'll go to court. With a resigned sigh, Armando went downstairs, called the maid, and explained the situation to her. Hurry up and get ready to leave, he told the frightened Sarah. Disappear and keep quiet, I'll reward you. But if you start blabbing, you'll follow our former mistress, I promise. When Sarah, hastily changing and carrying a small bag with her belongings, disappeared from the house, Armando gathered himself, went to the police station, and confessed that he murdered his former wife. He was arrested. Armando spent the rest of the day in a holding cell. The next day, the investigator called him into his office. Armando Lozano, we searched your home, the investigator said. However, there were strange discrepancies with your statements. You claim to have killed your wife by pushing her down the stairs. But there were no bloodstains found during the search, and there should have been. Perhaps you've murdered her differently. Yes, of course, I just forgot, Armando falsely asserted with confidence. I simply got confused. What did you forget? The investigator stared at the detainee. Forgot and confused how you killed your wife. Yes, I actually accidentally shot her with a gun, he replied. What gun? The investigator raised an eyebrow at Armando. We haven't found any guns while searching at your home. From a hunting rifle, Armando stated. I actually killed my wife at the country house. We got divorced and went straight there, he hurriedly began to explain. I took out the rifle, intending to clean it, and Adriana started arguing with me, then she clawed at my face, and I accidentally pulled the trigger. That's it. All right, Armando, we'll check everything, the investigator replied. The next day, Armando was sitting again in the investigator's office. Armando, what is your goal? He pulled out a document from the folder and placed it on the table in front of the detainee. Look, this is the search protocol from your country house. Do you think we have nothing better to do here? Read. The investigator thrust the paper under Armando's nose. If you claim you shot your wife with a hunting rifle, then why did the examination show that your rifle hasn't been fired in several years? Or do you have another, different rifle? No, Armando looked bewilderedly at the investigator. Furthermore, Armando, your housekeeper stated that neither you nor your wife were at the country house for the past several days, the investigator continued. Explain the situation. I don't remember how I killed her, Armando said. But I do remember where I buried her. I can show you. Armando, accompanied by police officers, left the city limits. 2 hours later, the angry and tired police officers brought Armando back. His wife's body was not found in any of the specified locations. The investigator, learning about the search results, looked at the strange detainee with annoyance. Are you not a bit crazy, Armando? He asked. Or maybe just a pranker. I heard that rich people living the good life like to joke around and prank everyone. And the cameras in the entrance and in the yard of your house recorded how your wife walked out of the house on her own that day and got into a car with license plates from another region. How do you explain that? All right, the investigator concluded. You'll spend a couple of days in a mental hospital. Maybe it'll clear your mind. Why? Armando panicked. You have no right. I don't need to go to a mental hospital. You do, Armando, the investigator assured. To close the case, all that's left is to conduct a psychiatric evaluation. Lie down, think it over, and by autumn, maybe you'll want to joke around less. The next 2 weeks, Armando spent in a mental hospital. He had some neighbors in the ward, 2 of whom believed themselves to be Napoleons and constantly argued with each other about who was the real one and who was just pretending. There were also Adolf Hitler and Harry Potter in the ward, who had productive collaborations. Meanwhile, the most fearsome dictator of the 20th century persistently searched for the Grail Cup, while Harry Potter tried to recreate it from his slipper by reading incantations that only he understood. None of Amando's neighbors paid any attention to him. Soon, the psychiatric evaluation declared him perfectly sane. The investigator fined Amando for disorderly conduct, closed the case due to a lack of evidence of a crime, and, with noticeable relief, ushered him out of his office. Receiving back his belongings confiscated during the arrest and his phone, Amando immediately began to call Emilio. "I did everything as promised," he told Emilio over the phone. "Now, are you satisfied, and will you forgive my debt?" "You've been missing for so long," Emilio replied. "I thought you had just run away." "I was put in a mental hospital for evaluation," Amando said. "But now the case is closed, although I'm still not sure if I'm the real Amando Lozano or some kind of Napoleon or President Kennedy." "I see," Emilio replied, barely holding back laughter. "As for the debt, here's the thing," he continued, now speaking seriously. "Sorry, but my company, to which you owe so much, now has a new owner, so at the moment, you'll have to sort out your debt not with me, but with the new owner." "Are you kidding me?" Amando protested. "I'll never believe that you managed to sell your company with such debts." "I didn't sell it," Emilio replied nonchalantly. "I gifted it." "Enough joking," Amando exclaimed. "It's not funny at all." "I'm not joking," Emilio said. "I can introduce you to the new owner of this company today. You know the French restaurant next to my main office? Come there in 2 hours, you'll meet there and also discuss the terms of settling your debt." 2 hours later, Amando, after stopping at home and tidying himself up as best as he could, stepped into the gleaming doors of the French restaurant. Brushing off the waiter, he surveyed the room and, spotting Emilio sitting at one of the tables, made his way over. "So where is he, your new owner?" he asked, taking a seat in the neighboring chair. "He'll be here any minute now," Emilio replied. "There she is." "Look," Emilio said, looking somewhere behind Amando and waving his hand invitingly. "She? A woman?" Amando asked. "Yes, precisely. She's a great woman," Emilio replied, smiling contentedly. "Hello, darling. Have a seat, our friend Amando has been waiting," he said, standing up and pulling out a chair for the woman who approached the table. Amando looked up, and in that moment, he couldn't utter a word. "You? Are you alive?" Amando stared dumbfoundedly at Adriana. "What are you doing here?" Adriana silently stared at Amando. There was not a trace left of bruises or any other signs of life with her ex-husband. She seemed to radiate happiness, and it made the woman look even more beautiful, vivid, and striking. "I wouldn't advise you to talk to Adriana like that," Emilio ironically remarked, taking his seat. "Firstly, she's no longer your wife. Secondly, Adriana has honored me by accepting my offer of marriage. We got married yesterday, and now we're getting ready for the wedding. And thirdly, if you knew what wedding gift I gave my young wife." "What gift?" Amando mumbled uncertainly, overtaken by a bad feeling. "Here," Emilio pronounced solemnly. "Meet Adriana Ortiz, the new owner of my company," and Emilio clapped Amando on the shoulder. "And the creditor of your enormous debt, man."
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.